Welcome to the Marta podcast, a sacred space of reclamation, unraveling, and in the age where loneliness and isolation are at an all-time high, also a place of deep connection to each other as well as to ourselves. As I share the intimate journey of my own life, I hope to reflect your own so that you can live more deeply and freely from a place of full alignment and authenticity. Because that is what we're here to do, to continually discover ourselves in order to fully express our sacredness, wholeness, and radiance as women. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome to the Marta podcast. I'm excited to talk to you today about a topic that I feel really will resonate with a lot of you. It has been a big part of my life, something that I have a huge heart for and a lot of experience in, and that is the topic of belonging, specifically not belonging, as my journey into belonging has been through not belonging for the majority of my life so far. And so just to give you a little bit of context, I grew up in Poland, and at the age of 12, my parents decided we were going to immigrate to the United States. And it wasn't one of those things that was like for fun, for an adventure. At the time, the background of what was going on in Poland was there was quite a bit of civil unrest. It was the end of the Cold War. And it just wasn't, there was no safety, particularly for my family, who were quite active in the anti-communism movement. And so for our safety and for freedom, my parents made the decision to flee Poland and to seek political asylum in the United States. And so we left our homeland, going through a refugee camp, which was in Germany for us. I turned 13 there. And so at the tender age of 13, I arrived in the United States, in New York and Brooklyn, not knowing the language, not understanding the culture, and pretty much immediately I was sent into American junior high school, 7th grade. I don't need to tell you how traumatic or shocking that experience was. I literally had no context of the environment I was entering and very little assistance in terms of anyone walking me through it. And hence a very true, but also a very intense experience of not belonging. It was true. It wasn't something that I just felt on the inside because of some beliefs. I did not belong. I experienced it physically and very intensely. And what made it really so much more difficult was the age that it happened to me at. And, you know, it was a key stage in the development of a young girl, of a human being. And that is, you know, the way we gain our sense of identity, it starts very early on. And, you know, when we're babies, we're completely dependent on our caretakers or parents or whoever. And then, so we're like the center of the universe, me. And then like that starts to expand. And as we gain awareness, as we mature and we start to age and we start to develop more, we're like, oh, there is this family unit that I'm a part of. So then our identity becomes, who am I in the context of this family? My mom, my dad, in my case, my sister. And so, you know, you sort of are exploring there and pushing boundaries and checking what feels safe and how the environment of family responds to certain things that you do, and it shapes who you become. And then right at around the age of 12, we begin the process again, but with our peers. So usually it's friends at school. And so, you know, I've established who I was by myself. I've established who I was at that stage of my life as a part of my family. And now it's like you enter that stage where you're going to explore who you are as a part of this larger unit, which is, you know, your community, your society, whatever you're a part of. And usually, like I said, that for us is our friends. And for me at that age, I left the friend group, the peers at school, and was torn out of that environment into something completely unfamiliar and unknown. Not only that, foreign language was spoken, new customs, new even body language, gestures, everything was brand new. And so I found myself very much an outsider at that age where you're looking to explore, who am I within the context of my friend group? I had no friend group. And so loneliness was very much an experience that I identified with and felt very, very deeply at that age, 12, 13, and the few years that followed as I tried to navigate that. And for me, I went right back to the thing that was familiar, which is clinging more tightly to my family, mom, dad, and my sister. And so it was almost like that developmental part of at that stage was interrupted and I regressed, right? Because the outside world showed me that I didn't belong. I was the outsider. I was the foreigner. I was a stranger. I did not fit in. And of course, at the time, all of this was happening subconsciously. I'm only able to talk about it, with this wisdom and this insight because I've studied my life. I've studied what happened. And so, but that for me, I'm sharing that with you because that for me was the birth of this sensation, this feeling, this thing that became my truth, which is I do not belong. I do not fit in. I was able to look back at my life and pinpoint, this was where it started. Probably started a little bit even earlier, but this was the time that I experienced it so deeply that it made an imprint on not only my personality, but my nervous system, my cells, like how I developed. I am the foreigner. I am the stranger. I am the one not fitting in. I am the weird one, right? That's always on the outside of the circle. I am the outsider. And so unknowingly, I carried that with me for then the rest of my life until I was able to see it, to detach from it. And so I feel like that is a very universal experience, maybe the details are slightly different. Maybe you didn't immigrate from a foreign country, but that feeling of being in high school or being in wherever, in middle school, where you're just not like everyone else. And it's so painful and it's so isolating and it gives birth to this loneliness that is just so deep and so painful. And it becomes such a big part of our experience as humans. And so that was the case for me. And so now I have such a deep heart and such a sensitivity for any time I see or experience this going on in the outside world. Even when I raised my children, when they were going to school, I was always be the one that sits with the kid that doesn't have any friends. And, I was overly sensitive to it. I also tend to travel quite a bit in terms of doing my life. I live between 3 different spaces, 3 different countries, France, United States, and St. Bart's, and an island in the Caribbean. And so I'm very much in a multicultural environment in which, A, it's really easy to spot the people that don't quite fit in with the culture of the place. And B, the kind of life experience I tend to create for myself, where I feel most comfortable, is being surrounded by the people that don't fit in, that are the strangers, that are the outsiders. So for example, most of the people that I'm surrounded by in Paris are people from different countries who have expatriated or immigrated or just came to Paris and fell in love and stayed. And the experience that unites us and bonds us to one another is we're all the outsiders in this French culture. And the same in the US. Most of my time is spent in Miami and in New York, 2 cities that are very international. And the same thing with St. Bart's. People from all over the world gather there. That is what's comfortable. That is what's familiar. But the thing that has been a gift of the life of non-belonging, and you can imagine the journey of that teenage girl, she so desperately wanted to fit in. She so desperately wanted to belong that the way she tried to get that acceptance is by erasing everything that made her uniquely who she was. So I wanted to know English. I wanted not to, when I started to learn English, I wanted to speak it without an accent. I wanted to dress like the other girls. I wanted to do my hair like the other girls. I wanted to act like the other girls. I wanted them to invite me when they were having sleepovers, and it is such a natural part of being a human, wanting to have your tribe, wanting to have your people, wanting to feel loved and accepted. But the way we've been taught to go about it, to me, is extremely damaging because we end up erasing the parts of ourselves that are unique. We end up disconnecting from the authentic parts of who we are and becoming just like everyone in our surroundings. And this leads to just like, okay, let's just all be average so that we can all feel comfortable without one another, rather than encouraging everyone around us. Can you just play your own song? Can you walk your own path? Can you sing your own tune? Because then you contribute to the whole by being and bringing something that only you can give and offer as a part of who you are, your authenticity. And so then we're taught and we're trained to blend in, to fit in. And it requires such a repression of the true essence that we each are. And I didn't really come to realize this until just fairly recently, as I'm watching a lot of what's going on online, specifically in the online coaching space, that there are so many conversations around following someone else's formula, someone else's pillars, the way they have grown their online business, the way they've navigated the entrepreneurial journey. Like, can I just take what they do and copy it and like run my business too, so I can have that kind of success? But you're taking someone else's steps and copying them, becoming a carbon copy of that mentor or that person that you look up to, versus adapting maybe what they've done and making it wholly, truthfully yours, which is in alignment and integrity with who we are. So it is so uncomfortable to be the one that's kind of walking upstream in the river, right? Everybody else is flowing down and you're like, that doesn't feel right for me. That doesn't feel in alignment with who I am and what I'm here to do. But the pain of walking up the stream and doing your own thing feels like that original not belonging, right? It takes you right back to the teenage years when you're then imagining stories of like, people are making fun of me. Maybe you're getting bullied. Maybe you're not getting that invited to things, and that like, I am alone in this walk. I am alone. No one sees me. No one hears me. No one loves me. I am irrelevant. I am unimportant. But if we sacrifice the authenticity of who we are for the illusion of acceptance from people who don't really get us, then is that even acceptance? Is that even belonging? If the tune that you're singing, the song that you're playing, the light that you're shining, the path that you're walking isn't yours, but simply one that you have copied by watching others, you're not showing up in life as yourself. And so then what happens, the people that you tend to attract, the people that come into your life, are the people that are attracted by this fake essence that you're projecting, this facade that you have built. And you find yourself constantly recreating that experience of not belonging, because the people that are finding you through you copying others are attracted to something about you that's not even true. And so you end up recreating the thing that you're trying to avoid, which is, I don't belong and I'm alone and I'm lonely. And so my medicine for this is, as with anything with me, it all starts with me and it all starts within. So it all starts with you and it all starts within. Can you be so connected to the truth of who you are? Can you be so full of your own essence, your own energy, your own frequency, your own power, your own light? Can you know it so well that you can show up in the energy of it everywhere you go? Speaking your truth, feeling your feelings, reacting to things the way you authentically and truthfully react, taking in the environment the way you take it in through your own filters, and then self-expressing who you are through what you say and how you show up and how you act. And then you're not projecting some image that you read in a book or studied in a master class or found an interesting concept. The signal you're putting out there is authentic, in integrity, and in alignment with the truth of who you are. And initially, that might not feel so great because what you're saying isn't just like what everyone else is saying. It's unique. It's yours. And so initially, the people that you've been surrounded by when you start to speak your truth might not be in full alignment, might not be in full agreement with what you're now all of a sudden beginning to say. And that is okay. Because as you tune into the truth and the essence of who you are and you start to bring that forth, you start to shine that light, you're sending a signal for the people who are in alignment with that to come forth. And so if you want to attract people that get it, get you, see you, accept you, love you for the truth of who you really are, you cannot be hiding behind how you're supposed to be. You cannot be acting. You cannot be pretending. You cannot be repressing your feelings. You cannot be stopping yourself from saying something because it's inconvenient or it might be hurtful. That is filtering your own truth. If you want to attract an authentic tribe who is able to truthfully, deeply connect with you and truly love you for who you are, not for who you're pretending to be, you have to be willing to take the risk of showing up in the truth of who you are everywhere you go all the time. You cannot be just a little bit in alignment. You're either in alignment or you're not. And so for me, I have this visual of a lighthouse, on a cliff, a beautiful lighthouse with wide windows shining her light out onto the sea. Now, the frequency of her light and the brightness of it and the power that she's projecting out there will attract the ships that need her safe harbor, that need her to guide them. And so that light has to be clear, true, and the authentic vibration of who I am. I am the lighthouse. You are the lighthouse. If the lights coming from you are not the truth of your soul, but something you were molded into by society, by your family, by culture, whatever your experience of, filtering and not being authentic is, you're not shining the right light. You're not shining the right signal for the right boats to find you. So think about how many boats there are on the sea that are looking for someone just like you, for someone who can guide them, who can share with them what you have to share, your gifts, your experiences, your vibration, your frequency, your energy. Dare to show up fully immersed in that truth of who you are and what you stand for, what your values are, so that all the boats on the sea can clearly find you to connect with you. Like, dare to be the lighthouse for others, because that's why you're here. You're not here to fit in and belong. That's like an invitation to let's just all be mediocre because it's uncomfortable. Yes, that's the experience of the teenage self, right? We just want to belong. And then when you're 14, 15, 16, it's okay to navigate that by repressing the truth of who you are. I mean, it ensures your survival. And so it's helpful back then. But when you constantly repeat that pattern as an adult, as a grown woman, you're stifling your growth, you're filtering yourself, you're silencing your self-expression, and you're preventing the world of the gift of the truth of who you are. And I believe that's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to contribute. Not to figure out a way for life to be as easy, not to figure out a way to be successful, not to figure out a way to make money. Those things will all happen when you're in alignment with who you are. You're living from the purpose of what you're here to do. And you step into the gift that you have to offer in the service of others. Now, usually that happens a little bit later on in life. I just turned 50. And so if you're in that first season of your life where you're still looking for your identity and you're, my career was very important to me in my 20s and in my 30s. Being a mother was everything I was in my 20s and in my 30s. But then there became a shift in my life where my priorities and who I was and what I stood for changed. And the invitation of that season in my life to look at my past, where I came from, who I was, how I became who I was, and then to focus on living with intention and every day co-creating not just a life that I want to experience, but having an intentional choice and the woman that I want to show up as every day, every moment of the day has become so important. And I will not allow anything to get in the way of my own freedom of who I am, what I stand for, and how I self-express. That is why I'm here. And I want to share that with the world so that the people that are aching and thirsting and longing for this kind of a conversation can find a place to have that conversation in safety, in pure openness, in complete love, and to be held in their experience where they get to self-express 100% of who they are without repressing, holding back anything. So much of my experience as a woman, as a human being, is about loving all those parts of myself who have felt in various stages of my life like they didn't belong. I'm loving them back into wholeness, integrating them into who I am, the person that I am today, and standing for the wholeness of fullness of what it is to be a woman, not just the parts that seem to be accepted, preferred, or lovable. I am all of me, and I am multifaceted, complex, and beautiful, and nothing about me is wrong, broken, or something that needs fixing, but I am unique. And for the first time in my life, I am so convinced and so fully standing in who I am. And I find it so beautiful, actually, that I want to encourage others to do the same. Stop looking for belonging. Stop looking for fitting in. Because if you're doing that at the cost of your authenticity and your authentic self-expression, you will never find it. It's when you dare to stand up and show the world who you truly are, your true colors, not what you do and how well you do it, but who you are on the inside, what's happening in the landscape within, your feelings, your emotions, your soft heart, the pain that's in there. When you start sharing all those uncomfortable things, you show up vulnerably, then at last you can find true belonging, because what you're looking for is to be loved for all of who you are, not just the beautiful facade or the little box with a pretty bow on the outside. Every fiber of your being, every cell, it can all be immersed in love, but you have to be willing to have your heart broken and let go of the people who are no longer in alignment with who you are. You have to go out there daring to love with your heart wide open, knowing you might get hurt, you might get injured. But that is the only way the people who can truly see you, hear you, feel you, be with you and love you can find you is if you show the parts of yourself that the world constantly is telling you to repress or improve. I call bullshit on that whole narrative. And I invite you first to tune in and really connect to who you are, what you stand for, what's important in your life, and then self-express it. Whatever that means to you. But be that what you stand for, so that you can be the lighthouse that calls in the lost ships at sea who need your guidance, who need your voice, who need your truth, who need your presence. And as you pour yourself out into them, into others in service, what comes back full circle to you is that it ends up feeding and nourishing your soul, and you find the belonging that you had been seeking. But it doesn't come by force. It doesn't come by controlling the environment and the people around you. You won't find it out there. When you become your own sorts of belonging, your own home, because you know who you are and what you stand for, and you love every aspect of that, external world just mirrors that love for you, and you begin to see it coming and arriving from everywhere. And that's because it was always there. You just had things that were standing in the way, blocking you from seeing it. The untrue, inauthentic transmission you were sending out that was attracting things that were also untrue and inauthentic. So dare to be the one walking upstream in that river. Dare to be the one to see what is being sold on Instagram and say, that's not how I do it. Dare to say the thing that's the popular narrative, that's not what I stand for. This doesn't feel good for me. This doesn't feel like truth. Don't take their word for it. Find your own experience that you are here to live, navigate it yourself, and then dare to stand up for that and share it so that you can model it for others. And that is what I wanted to share with you today. If this resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. And I will talk to you on the next episode. Sending you all my love. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you resonate with this message, or if you have a topic you'd like me to discuss in a future episode, I would love to hear about it. Send me a message on Instagram at Marta Hobbs. If you'd like to move more deeply in a community of like-minded, soul-led women, please join me in mine. It's called Come Closer. And if someone in your life would benefit from today's episode, I would love it if you send it along to them. Just click share in your podcast app and text it to a friend. Finally, I would be so grateful if you'd rate and review the Marta Hobbs podcast in your favorite podcast app. Your support will help this show find the women who need it. Thanks so much for sharing your time with me today. Until next time, I'm sending you all my love. Take care.